Right then, I'm just spraying our yellow bits first, because I find it's easier to mask up if we spray our yellow bits first, okay? And we've got like our tail as well, and there's the nose section. Now, I sprayed it up using the new Citadel layer yellow. The reason why I've used the Citadel, okay, is they've got a nice high pigment count, and yellow, I find that colours like yellow and white, okay, are a bit hard to get down, and you have to put coat after coat after coat down, okay. But the new Citadel range, you know, they seem to really crack the yellow, and it's quite nice and thick, and you just do a bit of thinning it down, and then you can nicely get some nice coverage. So it's a nice colour to use if you want to quickly get a nice coverage down, and it does actually dry really nice. Now I want to do a bit of post shading onto our yellow engine area here. Now normally you'd come along and maybe, you know, you add a bit of white to do a bit of bleaching, you add say some black to do a bit of post shading. With yellow though, I like to come along and use some sort of a dark brown. It doesn't really matter which kind of dark brown you use. In this case I'm just using 038 cam medium brown, okay. And the whole point is black is just a little bit too much, I think, for yellow to actually do the post shading, okay. It's just nicer if we come along with a brown. It's less harsh, shall we say, than a black, okay. Now I do need to add a little bit more paint to this mixture because it is a little bit too thin. A bit more brown. I'm just making this nice and thin, okay, because it is post shading, so we need our paint nice and thin, okay. And what we end up with, okay, is like a bit of a dirty yellow looking colour, rather than if we use black, I don't know, it just looks too strong and a bit out of place, okay. So we'll check how our airbrush is flowing and make sure she's coming out nice, okay. And we simply do our usual post shading, okay. Crikey, that's air pressure's up a bit. Okay, so as I say, we're just going to follow our panel lines. Follow the panel lines. We've got our exhaust area here as well, which we want to kind of concentrate on that a bit, because that's going to have a lot of like exhaust fumes and dust and everything all around that, and maybe our gun barrels, although this is a little bit on the thin side, to be honest, because it's not really touching this. So we'll mix in a bit more paint just to make it a little bit more thicker. Still thin, but for post shading it's a little bit more thicker. Okay, so again we want to get in there on those recessed panel lines and just bring them out. Although my airbrush seems a little locked up on the needle, so I'm just going to wipe it with a paper towel. Okay, and remember, this is the first stage of doing some weathering on this, so you've got to remember we've got to come along with, say, black afterwards, just to you know, bring out that dirty soot and gun barrel kind of soot that's building up around those areas. You know, pigments is also a pretty good one as well that you might want to do. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of see on camera that we've just nicely kind of took it from a, you know, a flat kind of yellow, okay, and we've just given it that little bit of different tones going on, just to liven it up a bit, give it that first little stage. Okay, so that, you know, we can do pigments and such and all that kind of stuff later on down the line, but that's looking good. And I do like the coverage of this new Citadel yellow paint, so you know, you might want to get your hands on some of that. Okay, what I've basically done, I've just sealed in our yellow front engine area just to protect it from when we do this masking up now. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to get some of our 16mm Tamiya tape, okay, and we're just going to mask this up. Now what I've already done, I've put on a 1mm jammy dog tape, okay, because the jammy dog tape, you know, you can nicely bend it and get it into a nice shape and everything, okay. And what we're just doing is we can get in with a cocktail stick, and wherever we've got like kind of 90-degree angles or something, okay, we can just push it in to those 90-degree angle corners, okay, and get it stuck down, okay, so we don't get any slight bits of overspray going under the masking tape and end up, you know, basically spraying over your work, okay. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going around this. The reason why I have, shall we say, done the yellow first, okay, I've done this model about, I think this is my third time I've done a Messerschmitt, and what you'll find is, one second, what you'll find is that to mask, to say spray the whole model and then mask up to spray it yellow, okay, it's a little bit harder to actually kind of, shall we say, mask up around this area, because we've got our wings here that get in the way, and I don't know how well you could see that, but just there, I mean, to mask up, you know, the wing section and the fuselage section just in this little corner here is, shall we say, it's not impossible, it's just more trickier than actually coming along and just simply masking it now. Okay, so that's the only real reason. It's just a little bit trickier and to do it last. Okay, so I like to always, you know, what is the easiest way to mask up, and you know, we mask up that way. Okay, so this can just have sort of like one last bit of 16mm, which should protect that now. Okay, and then again, you know, come along with a cocktail stick and just make sure that everything is still nice and masked down, which it isn't quite there, so it's a good job I checked that. Okay, make sure everything's pushed down, especially where our exhaust area is, because I just know and that is one of those areas that's a bit bumpy, 90-degree angles and everything, and that is just one of those areas that is going to get that bit of overspray. And we need a little bit more just here, maybe some scissors, just to make a nice flat edge. Okay, and that should mask that bit up there nicely as well. Yeah, the cocktail stick around here as well, just to get that to nicely stay down. Okay, so now that is done. Okay, what we want to look at is the Bellagio acrylic surface primer. Now this stuff needs a good shake, Now, this is the stuff that has a really nice finish to it, and I do like how it goes on. You know, it does give you that really nice, smooth, kind of more professional finish, but you've got to be really confident about your work, okay? Because if you need to do any sanding after you put your surface primer down, you're a bit, shall we say, screwed, okay? Because it doesn't sand away, it peels away, okay? Like that, it's kind of got welded on. There we go. Okay, so we could pour a nice amount in here, 50-50 mix with Bellagio airbrush thinners, okay? Get our little mixing brush, give it a good mix. And I think my air pressure is around about the 25 psi mark, which it is. Okay, so we can use our nose section now to hold this, okay, and we can start putting on a nice misty even coat. Just all over the model. And as I say, you've got to make sure you're confident about your work. You're confident that you've got no major seam lines going on. You've got no scratches. You know, there's no imperfections. You just know because you've you know, you've done a good job, because you know you won't be able to sand this down. This paint, it peels up and is kind of a bit nasty, and you end up with like these little tiny steps, like kind of, they're just like peeled up paint steps, okay, which is going to make things a bit hard, and it's not really that easy to get out and look professional. Okay, so just make sure you know you're not going to be doing any sanding. Okay, so now I could come in with, you know, a nice first coat after putting that quick misty coat. Reason why we do the quick misty coat, okay, is because when you're spraying onto bare plastic, okay, the paint doesn't quite bite to it, it doesn't quite stick to just bare plastic. So putting that quick misty coat on gives your following coats of paint something to stick to. Okay, now I'm just gonna cut to air and let that dry through. And I think you're gonna probably have to take my word for it about how the paint kind of finishes, which is why, although, shall we say, it's a risky kind of paint to use, because as I say, that peeling problem, it does have a nice advantage of having that real nice kind of nice professional, and it's a nice hard solid kind of paint finish, and it preps you really nice for all the other paint stages that come after that, which is why I like using it when I know I'm confident about the model. And let's face it, this model was so easy, you know, I know it's good. It's just everything has just fit together really nicely, no major sanding, no major filling, okay, so I know I'm not going to have any problems, okay. So that is basically your surface primer and a little quick thing about just doing a bit of masking up, okay. So I'm going to get back to you when we get some more points of interest on spraying. Right then, as you can see, I mean, a lot of the spray stage is now done. We have done our splinter camo pattern, okay. Well, I've still got our yellow nose section still masked up, just so I can actually hold it and play around with it. But we've got what is probably the last part of this, which is a bit tricky, and some people potentially might not like doing this, and that is on our instructions here, okay, we have a very kind of freehand camo pattern going on. Okay, you can get like photo etch masks for this, but if you do kind of look at it, it's like almost, I wouldn't say graffiti, but you know, an actual spray can, kind of a quick blast with a bit of a camo pattern. Okay, so it is good to come in nice and freehand with an actual airbrush. Okay, which, as I say, sounds tricky. Okay, but I'll talk you through it so we can do it together, and I'll kind of show you how to do it. And it's not that hard. It's not as hard as you think it would be. But what we might want to do, we might want to get maybe a little tub or something, just so we can lift the model up at an angle. Okay, so we've got a better kind of in a better position to spray with. Okay, now in this cup I've got leftover post shading, the dark post shading, because I just did the green camo. I did some bleaching, which is a bit of white, just to kind of bleach down the panels, and then I came in, added some black to make a darker version of our green being the RLM 71, just to bring out the recessed panel lines. Okay, so we're going to continue using this because I like to use a thin mixture. There are different ways of doing this. I mean, you can have low pressure and all this kind of stuff, but the way I do it is I like the kind of post shading mixture you use, which is about 80% finish to 20% paint. But as I say, we've got a bit of black in here, so there's no problem with coming along, instead of kind of like, you know, cleaning out your airbrush and everything. Okay, we know that this is just a darker colour of RLM 71, so what we can do is we can get a bit of our RLM 71, mix it in with our post shading colour, okay, and kind of bring it back to that RLM colour. Okay, which that's now looking nice. It might need a little bit more thinners. Now we've just added some more paint. Okay, so we'll make sure this is all nice and mixed up, like so. Put that to one side, put our lid back on. Okay, and I'm just gonna quickly spray to one side and just work through what was in the needle end, because remember, in the needle is what we haven't mixed up. Okay, we've mixed up what's in the cup, so we want to spray out a bit just to get rid of what's on the needle end. Okay, now I'm working at about 20-23 psi. Okay, and what the trick is with this, okay, is you push the button down for air, okay, and then you just want to, it's the biting point, that's it. You want to get your biting point where you just bring back the trigger, and then you just start getting that paint coming out. Okay, you get that biting point. Okay, that's what you're aiming for. So for something like this, if you've never done it before, okay, we've got some, you know, scrap plastic card. As you can see, I've been messing about with this, it doesn't matter. And as I say, you just want to get that. Actually, let's bring you right in and I can show you a little bit better. Okay, you've got, where is it? Okay, what you've got, okay, you bring your needle back, sorry, your trigger back, so you just start getting that biting point, okay, where you just start getting a bit of paint out. Okay, you didn't see that. I'm having trouble working out where, there we are. Okay, you just bring it back, so you just get that bit of a biting point. And I don't know if you just saw that, but I just put a little bit of paint out there. And what you want to do is just kind of get that biting point, okay, and then start making a bit of a squiggly pattern, like so. Okay, see that little cross I did there? Bring back, just get that biting point where the paint just comes out. okay, and then we can make maybe a bit of a Y pattern, okay, like so. You probably just missed that off camera. Bring you in, sorry. Yeah, see, I've just made like a Y pattern, an X pattern, okay, and we're just bringing back to that biting point, okay, and we're just squiggling it around to make a nice kind of these little patterns here. So if you kind of practice that onto something that you don't mind messing up, like this styrene plastic, okay, which really, if you've not done this before, I mean, this is something that you want to be making sure you've got right, okay, because as you can imagine, you know, you've done all this work, you cut this up now, and that is it, okay. You know, you're going to be like spraying back in you know, all this kind of detail, well, all the splinter camo pattern you've done. So just to show you, okay, I'm doing the same on here, okay. I'm just getting that biting point where the paint just starts to come out, and then I'll start squiggling around and making me pattern, okay. Looking at the instructions at what the pattern is on there, and it's basically just kind of blobs of, you know, blobs of random lines of paint, kind of like T shapes, Y shapes, X shapes, okay. But I'm making sure I don't go past the biting point. I'm just keeping the biting point, okay. So as you can see on there now, I've made a couple of little shapes, okay, nice and easy. And then what you can do is you can kind of give a little random all round kind of little bit of a blast, just to kind of blend that camo pattern in a little bit. So I've just give that a little all-round blast over all the little patterns we made, as I say, just to blend that in, okay. So I'm going to go around all this and get all this done, and then it's just simply putting a gloss coat on, ready for decaling. So the key to this kind of technique is to find that biting point, get used to it, practice with it on plastic card, okay, get that biting point. Once you get the biting point, you know, try and just squiggle out these kind of camo patterns, okay, and just practice on that before you do it on the model, because as I say, you know, this has all been nicely sprayed up, and if you practice on the model itself, you're going to be coming back and, you know, you're going to be respraying bits and masking up again, okay. Practice first. Right then, here we have the decaling stage. Now, I did say in the inbox review the decals are a right pain, okay. The decals are basically, I can only imagine that they're a bit on the thick side, and whatever the decal film is made out of makes it a right pain, okay. Now, the reason why I'm showing this is there is a different procedure I do when dealing with these really problematic decals, okay. Now, your usual micro, sol and set, okay, which pretty much maybe 8 times out of 10, okay, this stuff will do the job, okay. But sometimes you have a bit of tricky decals, they're a bit on the cheap side or something, and then I kind of find that the Mr. Mark range, which is your softener and setter, is a bit more stronger, and it will probably do the rest, okay. But then from time to time you have these rare decals that, you know, Mr. Mark doesn't touch, the micro sol and set doesn't touch, and for some strange reason X28 thinners seems to do it where everything else doesn't, okay. And I find these solutions will do the job, and then of course, as a complete and utter last resort, you got your Tamiya extra thin cement. Very kind of risky, but it will do anything. So with these decals, okay, I kind of follow a different procedure than your normal way of doing it, okay. So just to show you, we're just going to put on our little markings here. Just do the one. I've done the one side just to make sure the procedure I do is good. But the first time I did this kit, okay, I'll just dip this into our pot of water here, nice warm water. The first time I did this kit, okay, I used the micro solid set, and it was just constantly apply, and it just would not touch it, okay. These decals just did not soften up, they did not wrinkle up, they did not conform to anything, and it just would not work, okay. So these are kind of a no-no for these particular decals, and there's potentially other decals out there as well, you know, the cheaper ones, shall I say, where we're probably going to have the same problem. Now, I do find that the Mr. Mark range does have a bit of an effect on it, okay, but to get that maximum effect that the Mr. Mark range does, I'm going to show you how I do things differently. Now, I've just dipped that in, as you just saw, some warm water, and I'm going to come along with a Mr. Mark setter, okay, which is basically the same as micro set, okay, same principle, and I'm going to apply this straight away, okay, to the decal while it's still on the paper, okay, because these this decal film is thick. We need to just get in there and don't mess about, and we need to get some solution straight on it. Because it's so thick, we don't have to worry so much about having a problem of it wrinkling up and softening up and creasing and tearing and all those kind of things. Because they're so thick, you know we can get away with coming in with the strong stuff straight away, okay. And this is where we follow a different bit of a procedure, okay. Normally, as I've shown in other videos, I've got this little pot that looks like there's just water in there, but what's actually in here is a bit of micro set, probably about that much on the end, and the rest is all water. And I like to just spray it on, and it just gives, you know, a nice wet moist surface to put the decal on with a bit of that micro set, just to help with adhesiveness and start the softening process, okay. But with these decals, okay, we don't mess about. We come along with the Mr. Mark softener, which is the same as micro sol, okay. Now, you do not do this with your standard decals, okay, because what we're going to do, we're just going to brush paint this on where we want our decal to be. And as I say, you don't do this with your normal good decals, okay, because what would happen is, when I come along now and slide this off onto the model, okay, those normal good decals would now start to wrinkle up like mad. And while we now come along and play to try and get this in position, and we move it in position and everything, with the normal decals we'd be like smudging it, we'd be wrinkling it up, we'd be creasing it, we'd be potentially tearing it, okay. But these decals, you can get away with it because they're so thick. They don't wrinkle up like normal ones do, so we can actually put it on as a first layer straight away, and then we can come along and apply another layer on top of that to really start our softening and wrinkling process, okay. But as I say, normal decals, okay, you're gonna ruin them. So this is an exception. You do this kind of procedure. Now I'm gonna bring you in, okay, so you can actually see. Hopefully you'll see. Hold on, let's bring you in. And hopefully what you'll do is you'll see, if we can just get you in. Okay, you might be able to see that it's actually just starting around the edges to wrinkle up a little bit. Okay, you probably can't see it, I don't know if you can, but there is a little bit of wrinkling going on there, okay? Only a bit, just round the edges, okay? And you know, you just would not be able to do that with these decals if you were just coming along doing the normal procedure. The normal procedure is, as you probably already know, you can apply a bit of micro set, which is like a bit weaker, and then put the decal film on, and then you put micro set on top of that, okay, and then you're wiping away with the cotton wool bud, and then you come in afterwards with microsol, okay? That's what you'd normally do, but this case we are just not messing about. We're coming in with some Mr. Mark softener, okay? Now that's had a little bit of time, and I can see it's just wrinkling up a bit nicely, so we're gonna do the usual procedure of just wiping away, okay, our solution, okay. And you know, if these were normal decals and we were doing this bit of a wipe away with a cotton wool bud, okay, we'd have all sorts of problems with it wrinkling and going all nasty and everything, but we're okay because these decals can take it, okay. You might want to push that up a bit. Okay, there we go. So because these decals are thick, it can take this kind of a pounding. And what I like to do as well, it's a little bit risky, but I also like to come in at this stage, even while it's a little bit soft, and just very lightly and very carefully start cutting into those recessed panel lines, okay? Now you've got to be careful, but I want to, while it's all starting to soften up and start to just, I mean, very slightly wrinkle up, okay, I want to start cutting into those recessed panel lines so that our Mr. Mark can be applied again, okay, so we can actually really give this a good see into at this stage, which is what you need to do with these decals. Because as I say, your micro sol and set is just not going to touch these decals, okay. So we want to give that time to nicely, shall we say, dry and everything. Now I'm just going to do, now this side has basically already had time to dry, so I can show you this side, but I'm going to bring you in close because we're going to, you know, really kind of take a look at this now. Okay, let's move the camera a second, bring you in a little bit more. Okay, so we want to get our recessed panel lines and all that kind of stuff really starting to conform, so I'm just going to put some pin pricks on this circular recessed panel line here. Okay, we've already cut into that panel line, just going the long way, okay, and I'm not going to mess about, okay. Tamiya extra thin cement. Now this is also risky as well, because you've got to be careful that you don't go nuts, you don't rub, you just want to quickly dab it on, you don't want to mess about, and we're just aiming for our recess panel lines, okay, like so. And then we're going to get our circular one here with just one dab, go around, okay, and just let it virtually just melt away, okay. As you can probably see in the light, where it kind of, it's a bit more shiny, that's where I've applied the Tamiya extra thin cement, okay. And what that's basically going to do, it's just going to melt right into it and go right into those recessed panel lines and give us that kind of like nice sprayed on look, okay, because it's actually going in to our recessed panel lines, okay, and looking quite nice. Now Admittedly, that procedure is a bit on the risky side, okay? Well, you might think it is on the risky side in the sense of just coming in and using the Mr. Mark softener, but trust me, these decals can handle, you know, this stuff so early on, okay? And it's what you need to apply to kind of get it early on starting to conform and everything. The risky part is, you know, your Tamiya extra thin cement. You just gotta be careful doing that. Now, the reason why I've just not messed about and come in with this stuff, because I know I'm going to probably be here all day, even with Mr. Mark softener, I'm going to be here all day applying coat after coat after coat after coat, trying to get it to go into our recessed panel lines and conform nicely, okay? So, you know, after that first quick kind of coat at the beginning, as I showed you with Mr. Mark, once it's dried, don't mess about. Get your Tamiya extra thin cement in there, because it's the only real way you're going to get it to look proper professional. Because if you don't do that, you're going to end up with like a bridging effect. A bridging effect is where, you know, you've got your recessed panel line, okay, and the decal film goes on top, okay, and creates a bridge, okay. And if you don't come in with your solutions, okay, you're going to have that bridge. If you come in with them, your bridge is going to kind of sink in, you know, and you can put all your weather in and all that kind of stuff to make it look nice, natural, and more merged with the model, okay. So apart from that, you know, hopefully you'll take your time, you know, and just remember the risks with the Tamiya extra thin cement, and just remember it can handle, you know, the Mr. Mark softness so early on. So no messing about with these decals.